This is the farthest point from the ocean on the Eurasian continent. The American geographer Ellsworth Huntington called this region the heart of Asia. In a stroke of perhaps divine luck, the snow melt from the mountains to the north and south have fed into this region, creating an oasis in the middle of the lifeless desert, setting the stage for human settlement. Dunhuang is one such community. Early morning one autumn day in 312 AD, a courier left the gates of Dunhuang, following the winding road into the Gobi Desert. His destination, Samarkand, on the western edge of that desert. Since the time of Han Wudi, events like this have been an everyday affair along this busy trade route. However, something out of the ordinary occurred on this particular occasion. Today, we have no way of knowing what exactly changed. What we do know is that the package never made it to its destination in Samarkand. The Samarkand of modern times is the second largest city in Uzbekistan. In ancient times, it was one of the vital trade hubs along the trade routes between the Orient and the Occident. The vibrant silk trade enabled it to become one of the wealthiest capitals of its time. People dubbed it the Rome of the East. Several thousand kilometers to the east of Samarkand, scattered throughout the desolate sands of Gobi outside Dunhuang, stand countless beacons like this one. Throughout the years, aside from the odd wandering shepherd, these relics of a bygone era stand more or less ignored upon their earthen mounds. Rays of sunlight shine downwards from above, revealing to us the scenes from the past. League after league of eastbound road alongside the city's southern wall makes the purpose of those mounds very clear. All that's left of that scene today is one solitary eroded earthen mound. In his memoir, Ruins of Desert Cathay, Mark Aurel Stein describes his impressions on the scenery. It was early spring in 1907. This explorer from the British Empire was destined for the treasures rumored to be hidden in the Mogao Caves. But the Taoist abbot was currently away on business and would not be back for several months. Stein was forced to pass the time that he now had by performing excavations in locations outside of Dunhuang. Luckily for Stein, he made an extraordinary discovery within the ruins of one such discarded beacon. He had found several inscribed wooden slips dating from the Han Dynasty, and 8 seldom before seen paper documents. This picture of that discovery was taken by Stein to commemorate the find. When it was discovered, the documents were rolled into a 10 by 3 centimeter packet bundled by securely tightened string. Written on the wrapper covering the package were several rows of unfamiliar characters. Stein had never seen these characters before. Relying upon his years of archaeological experience, he decided that this ancient writing could be of research value. Little did he know, this was the missing package destined for Samarkand 1600 years ago. What's more, this accidental find on the outskirts of Dunhuang would become the key to unlocking the secret of commerce along the Silk Road in the Middle Ages for future generations of researchers. Long before Zheng Jian made his journey westwards on orders from the Han court, Chinese silk had reached the Western world. When silk first appeared in the Western world, people could not believe such a beautiful material existed. The ancient Romans at the time were certain that silk was made from fur shorn from trees. Eventually, this beautiful, soft, luxury fabric completely conquered the Roman market. The empire's annual gold exports to sate its appetite for the material exceeded 3,110 kilograms. In order to maintain this trade deficit, the Romans were forced to plunder neighboring peoples.
Back in the Han Dynasty, China exported silk to Rome. The silk was worth its weight in gold. This exchange rate meant several thousand% profit for traders. They used large amounts of gold coins to buy silk from China.
The outflow of gold from the Roman Empire due to silk importation quickly drained its economy. This was seen as one reason for its eventual decline. The Roman Senate banned public purchase of silk several times, but these efforts proved futile. Promises of large profits drove caravan after caravan of merchants to travel westwards from Samarkand, heedless of the risks. The merchants profited greatly from this arrangement, and their footprints covered the Eurasian continent. The paths blazed by these first traders was named the Silk Road by later generations, and the route's all-important gateway into China was Dunhuang.
These Central Asians' defining physical features were high nose, deep-set eyes, and thick facial hair. The merchants viewed commerce as their life goal. Whenever a child was born into one of these families, they would often place a piece of rock candy in their mouths. The reason for this ritual is that they believed this would help foster their negotiation skills. After all, a good merchant succeeds to be able to sweet-talk his customers, yeah?
In ancient Chinese historical records, the people of Samarkand were referred to as Sogdians. Mentions of this ancient people from Central Asia often appeared in Chinese records, but detailed descriptions of their customs and interactions whilst in China were few and far between. Stein's discovery helped to fill this gap. We are inside the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, located in Paris. Here, in April of 2008, we were able to photograph a scroll of Buddhist scriptures written in Sogdian script dating from the Tang Dynasty.
Alors, c'est grâce à ces quelques caractères qui sont portés à la fin du manuscrit que Pelliot a pu identifier le texte. Donc voilà, c'est le Shan Ingguojing. Et donc, parmi les manuscrits qui ont été retrouvés dans la grotte, a été retrouvé ce petit livret qui est le même texte. Donc, 佛说山因果经一卷, voilà. Et c'est en comparant le texte en chinois et la version sogdienne qui a été traduite d'ailleurs du chinois qu'on a pu faire avancer les études sur la langue sogdienne.
Of those 8 letters, 7 were related to commerce. Scholars were able to pinpoint the year during which these letters were written, based on the content of one of these letters. The year was 312 AD, or, in the dynastic calendars, year 6 of the Western Jin Yongjia era. Sent from the household of Nani, 1,000 congratulations to the house of your greatness Ba-er. Your humble servant, Nani Banda, bows before you as if before the king himself. The letter is penned by Nani Banda, the leader of a group of Sogdian traders. He is writing to his employer who is based in faraway Samarkand. In his letter, Nani Banda describes in detail current events within China's borders. Several months ago, Xiongnu armies breached the defenses of the dynastic capital, Luoyang, burning, pillaging, and killing with wild abandon. It is said that 30,000 people have already died during this onslaught. He had lost all contact with the caravan he had sent to Luoyang 6 months ago. Recently, I heard that the emperor fled Luoyang to escape starvation. Soon after, the seemingly impregnable city walls and his imposing imperial palace were put to the torch. The resulting fire burned the city to cinders, completely destroying his palace. Luoyang's population of Indians and Sogdians are now bereft of property and in danger of death by starvation. This period of violence, which heralded the end of the Western Jin dynasty, was later referred to as the Yongjia Rebellion. Despite being forced to suspend all silk trade within central China, Nani Banda signaled that he would not leave the country, instead vowing to do his best to defend his trade group's business holdings in the area from Dunhuang to Jincheng. Honored Elder, it has been roughly 3 years since we have lost the support and aid we enjoyed from China's interior. Under these circumstances, we will continue to Jincheng to purchase felt and hemp fabric products. Aside from the above, he arranged for a merchant by the name of Warazma to make his way from the city of Guzhang to Dunhuang and pick up 32 bags of expensive musk from a Sogdian merchant named Farnazbu to ship back to Samarkand.
Judging by the contents of this letter, I would say that the trade group was a large one, and it most likely would have been based in Liangzhou, which is now the city of Wuwei in Gansu province.
The ancient Xiongnu called it Guzhang. Because of its advantageous location, the ancient Sogdian trade group would have been based here.
An ancient poem went, 10,000 breaking houses in Liangzhou, half its streets filled with northerners playing their music. Firstly, this says the city was home to many foreigners. And secondly, the expat culture of the city was very extensive.
This here is one of Wuwei's most unique cultural products. The locals call it harp making. From the time of Han Wudi, foreign merchants from the West have been drawn into China, following the economic prosperity of the Silk Road and the metropolitan culture of cities like Dunhuang and Wuwei along its route. The path between Dunhuang and Wuwei is a narrow strip of land nestled between the Gobi Desert and Mount Qilian. It is referred to as the Gansu Corridor. Over the past millennia, this corridor served as the sole pathway between central China and Central Asia. The ancestors of the Sogdians first made their way here before the first Xiongnu incursions. The snowmelt running down the slopes of Mount Qilian feed the rich grasslands within the Gansu corridor and enrich its fertile soil. After Han Wudi conquered the region from the Xiongnu, it has constantly served as one of China's greatest breadbaskets, as well as its largest source of war horses. Luckily, the messenger safely arrived at Dunhuang. Almost as soon as Warasma left Wuwei, Nani Banda sent out his letter. The message was written on extremely expensive stationery. Before sending it out, he made special care to tightly secure the wrapper with string. But all of this effort would prove to be for naught. This letter and its companions would soon be lost at the foot of a beacon marker in the Gobi Desert. Just as Nani Banda described in his letter, the centuries of warfare within China did not overly affect the hardy Sogdian traders, who busied themselves along this temporarily disrupted trade route. Along with their interactions, the long-lived Chinese way of life slowly began to change. Today, the land between Dunhuang and Luoyang are littered with countless Buddhist stone-carved temples that were excavated during that special era. These creations of incomparable craftsmanship are the best examples of that change. "400 years after the Yongjia Rebellion, when another Sogdian caravan from Samarkand passed by this segment of the Great Wall, no one thought that letters to their ancestors from centuries ago would be hidden amongst these ancient sentinels. With the expansion of the economy, Sogdian merchants solidified their foothold in China. Today, one can find large amounts of evidence of Sogdian presence within cities all throughout China. We have pieced together historical records to bring to life one such young Sogdian merchantman. His fictionalized life experiences are all based on real-life events that happened to the Sogdians of that time period. We find ourselves amidst a caravan bound for Chang'an. It is the first time that our protagonist, Shala, has stepped on this China-bound path, the first step on a journey that would prove to change his life. The year is year 14 of the Tang Dynasty's Dabao era. The route that this caravan took from Samarkand passes through Kashgar, Khotan, then Dunhuang, before finally arriving at Chang'an. This journey takes the travelers through the permanently snow-covered highlands of the Pamirs. The land is harsh, the air is thin, and for these merchants, it is without a doubt the most harrowing part of their journey east. Kashgar is their first stop after passing through those treacherous heights. It is the largest gathering point in Central Asia. Within its market stalls, one can find many fantastic curios and treasures from China and Central Asia. Aside from those, Kashgar is also known for a unique local specialty. It is the Hushuan dance, a dance that spread from Sogdian lands. Female Hushuan dancers were highly sought after in Tang China.
Tang poems make mention of Hushuan and Hutong dances often. Many poets wrote about this topic. Many of the taverns used Hu women, that is, women from Central Asia, who could do the dances to entice customers.
Although the Tang Dynasty strictly forbade the slave trade, Central Asian cultures did not interfere in human trafficking. Kashgar is far to the west of China proper, and thus naturally became the most famous slave market in Central Asia. In its heyday, many Sogdian caravans frequented these markets, greatly profiting from this unique business. All caravans continuing further east had to make fully ready to ensure their safe arrival. The horses and oxen they had used previously had to be exchanged for two-humped camels, as only these hardy creatures could survive the arduous journey through the desert. The long trek, coupled with hot desert temperatures, sapped away a traveler's strength. These conditions were immortalized in mural form on the cavern walls of cave number 298 at the Mogao Caves. At the end of the day's journey, if their luck held out, caravanners could stop and rest at a roadside inn. While there, they could find shelter from the cold desert night, replenish their drinking water, treat any sick or injured animals, and secure themselves against marauding bandits. While a caravan rests at one such inn, occasionally bolder merchants in the train would split off from the herd and attempt to travel through the night in order to get a head start on any lucrative business opportunities. This behavior was very risky and often ended in death for these foolhardy individuals. Morning of the next day, after seeing the remnants of merchants who were waylaid by bandits lying along the sides of the road, Shala's lingering doubts are replaced with relief for having stayed with the caravan. The fates of those unfortunate enough to fall prey to bandits were immortalized in the frescoes adorning Cave 45 of the Mogao Caves. It is a desperate scene. Even 1,000 years later, we can still almost hear the frantic heartbeat of those merchants as they saw the bandits approach. Shala's caravan didn't take any risks. They cautiously advanced at a steady pace towards their destination. This is a portrait of a Khotanese king in Mogao's cave number 98. This king, garbed in the Chinese manner, was named Yuqi Shafupo, and, due to his ancestors having a close relationship with the Tang, was given the Chinese last name Li. The Kingdom of Khotan was the ancient Central Asian world's premier marketplace for gemstones. The majority of the famed nephrite jade was sent to China from here. In Khotan's markets, Shala and the other merchants sold off part of their cargo to Celestite, using some of those profits to purchase nephrite, which would net them a healthy profit in the Chinese markets. Many unexpected difficulties could appear during the difficult desert trek. One common occurrence is the depletion of expected fresh water sources, but this wasn't considered a major problem to experienced merchants. Their camels always knew the way to nearby water, but the water they found would be salty and bitter. However, if they brought that water to a boil, and added in raw noodles, the flour would absorb the dissolved salts, leaving behind water that was at the very least drinkable, enough to last them until the next source of fresh water. After several torturous months of travel through the desert, and upon finally catching sight of Dunhuang city walls, the caravan members finally breathed a sigh of relief. The path southward from here on would be the relatively comfortable path through the Gansu corridor. This is Dunhuang's Shazhou market in 2007. Tourists from all over the world have turned this area into the city's busiest location. This frenzy of activity is almost identical to the level of activity 1,000 years ago. Back then, in order to have enough money to pay for lodgings in Dunhuang while they rested, the merchant caravans sold off a portion of the goods they carried within these markets. This is a set of Sogdian robes dating from the Tang Dynasty found in Turpan in the Xinjiang region. Despite 1,000 years worth of exposure, they still retain their colors. These were the hottest selling items for Sogdian caravans. In this painting by Tang artist Yan Li Ben, titled Procession on Foot, the clothing worn by the Tibetan emissary Lu Dongzan standing before Tang Taizong is made from that Sogdian fabric. Those fabrics originating from Central Asia were referred to by the Tang Dynasty as Hu cotton. Wearing fashionable clothing made from these materials was a sign of wealth and social standing. Because of the cost of tailoring and acquiring these materials, the price attached to that clothing was unaffordable for the lower classes.
A bundle of this cotton is about 1.35 meters in length, and a bundle of cotton of that length, this bundle of cotton, it costs the price of 1.5 horses, or about 6 heads of cattle. And 1 head of cattle is somewhere around 2,000 yuan in today's money. So the price of the cotton was over 10,000 kwai for a bundle.
Just like Hu cotton, dancers from Central Asia were an expensive commodity. In order to ensure a smooth transaction when dealing in human beings, both parties had to rigorously adhere to strict government regulations. As clearly seen in this Tang-era city provisions unearthed in the Turpan region, the seller must find at least 5 locally registered guarantors before completing the transaction.
Judging by their last names, these 5 guarantors at a glance were all Sogdians: Kang, Shi, An, and so on. They were foreigners who were longtime residents of China's western provinces, while they all registered as private citizens in Shisu census. The fact that they all serve as guarantors for Sogdian slave traders shows that they banded together for mutual cooperation and benefit. This was also a key trait of Sogdians.
Whilst in Dunhuang's markets, Shala became acquainted with some Sogdian expats from his hometown. They became the buyers in his first sale. This is a receipt of donation from a Tang-era Sogdian merchant to a Buddhist temple. Its contents are a meticulous list of each donation item and its value. This merchant, named Kang Shuhua, not only obtained Dunhuang registration, but converted to Buddhism, renouncing his old faith. In the High Tang period, construction at Mogu Caves reached its zenith. In the High Tang period, construction at Mogao Caves reached its zenith. Shala also frequented this constantly expanding network of cave temples with his new acquaintances. There are no words to describe the visual experience the Mogao Caves brought for the young man. Its lifelike statues and colorful murals must have been an unforgettable moment in his life. When the caravan left Dunhuang, fall was turning into autumn. After near 6 months of arduous journeys, the travelers were finally about to see the fabled capital of the Tang dynasty. Little did Shala know that he would never get a chance to see Chang'an. That winter, a Chinese general with Sogdian ancestry initiated a rebellion. Emperor Xuanzu performed an emergency recall of the empire's border troops in response. Shala's caravan did not get very far beyond Dunhuang before being forced by various armies to turn back. The leader of the rebellion was called An Lu Shan. This rebellion was named the Anxi Rebellion by subsequent generations. In the Sogdian language, Lu Shan meant radiant wisdom. Ironic that An Lushan's legacy meant an era of darkness for the Silk Road. The path from Dunhuang to Chang'an was cut. Until the end of his life, Shala was never able to reach the imperial capital. He, along with many other Sogdians, decided to settle down in the eastern neighborhoods of Dunhuang, adopting local Chinese habits, and took up the Chinese last name of Kang. "1,000 years later, the Sogdians of Dunhuang have long been absorbed into the greater Chinese demographic.
The people today who have last names of An, Kang, and Shi got those last names from their Sogdian ancestors. Aside from some facial features, their ethnic identity and unique linguistics have long since disappeared. After the An Shi rebellion, the Uyghurs, who aided the Tang in suppressing the rebels, gradually replaced the Sogdians as the new masters of this vital trade lane. Their dominance lasted for several centuries, until the rise of the maritime commerce.
After the Anshi rebellion, the Uyghurs, who aided the Tang in suppressing the rebels, gradually replaced the Sogdians as the new masters of this vital trade lane. Their dominance lasted for several centuries, until the rise of maritime commerce. As a result, Dunhuang slowly fell into decline. Until its discovery in the early 20th century, its stories, buried in the sands of Central Asia, lying dormant. Within the bundle of 8 letters found by Stein was a letter unrelated to business meant for family. 1,600 years have passed, yet it still tugs at the heartstrings. The letter was written by a Sogdian woman named Millie for her husband. She and her daughter remained in Dunhuang after her husband had abandoned them there. This life of suffering that I have endured makes me feel as if I am already dead. I write to you time and again, yet I have never received a single letter from you in response. I have lost all hope for your return. My only regret now is that I have waited in Dunhuang for 3 years for you. What do we see from the words written upon this time-worn letter? Is it hatred, lamentations of heartbreak, or is it hope-fueled expectation? Even today, Dunhuang is able to impart upon its visitors a sense of attraction and passion.